Before the video starts, I want to say thank you to a couple of people. The first person is going to be my man Colby, who gave me this Penn State ROTC shirt. He came in for a drop-in and did some strongman. Thank you so much, Colby. I really appreciate it. Next is Jeremy Vassar, who did the podcast. He runs a full-time elite painting company. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for doing the podcast with me. If you guys haven't checked out the podcast, I will link the details below. It gives you a great insight on my journey, my whole life, and how this gym came to be. Another person I want to say thank you to is my man Jerry, who hooked me up with this Army Ranger flag that you see above on the gym. He is an Army Ranger. Last week he came in and learned how to do some cleans and snatches so he can take that knowledge and do it while he's on deployment in Africa. So Jerry, thank you so much for all you do for this country. You are a real hero, my friend, and I will hang that flag with pride. Can't thank you enough. Lastly, I want to thank one of my clients, Joanna, who's been with me along this journey for the last 4 years. She was in California last week and decided to pick up a authentic U.S. Navy SEAL flag from Coronado, which is super cool. So I'm gonna hang that bad boy up right there. Thank you guys, now enjoy the content. What's going on, guys? Coach Joe here at the Lions Den, and the video I'm going to be discussing today is program design. So a lot of people have been asking me about my program design, what my background is, how I go about it. So I figured the first video, this will probably be video 1 of a small series about program design, will be just kind of educating you about myself, my story, and how I got to where I am today. Because I think a lot of what I do has come from my background and who I learned from. So we're just gonna dive right into it. I have these pointers up. Hopefully you guys can see the video okay. Take some notes. I think you will learn a ton of information in these next couple of videos that are gonna be coming out. All right, so a little bit about my background, guys. Growing up, I was bullied, I was overweight, and I was the gay best friend. And those 3 things were not very cool to me. So what I decided to do was change my lifestyle around. I was involved with martial arts at the time. I actually had my black belt in Kempo Karate, which definitely helped create the mindset that I have now, to never quit, to always be humble, and still to dominate everything that you do in life and work very hard. So I took those principles and I started jogging, doing push-ups and sit-ups, and just being a lot more active, cleaned up my eating, and I lost a significant amount of weight and started to build a better physique. Now, the next step from there that happened was I got involved with sports. Now that I was more athletic, people were like, yo man, you should play lacrosse, or you should play football, or you should wrestle. So I started playing lacrosse. I took those principles and I worked very hard in lacrosse, and I got elected to be on the Keystone State team. Cool accomplishment for me and my first year of playing lacrosse. So when I got onto that team, we were practicing in the summer heat, and I ended up actually getting heat stroke. I like pissed myself. I didn't know what was going on. It was real bizarre for me. Like I said, I went from nothing to then playing for a state team that was very competitive. So it was a big change for me. When I had heat stroke, I went to the hospital and they said that I was borderline with long QT syndrome, which you can look that up. It's a very serious heart condition, and I was teetering right on the line of having it and not having it. That threw my parents into a tailspin, as well as me as an athlete, and I ended up not playing that first year in the Keystone State team. It was just sucked. It was horrible. And that really made me want to do whatever I could to combat this problem. So my parents finally came up with the solution of hiring a personal trainer for me, which was awesome. And when I got to this trainer, he was like 6'7" and 300 pounds, huge traps, jacked, CFL football player, drafted by the NFL or the Raiders, and he was just a beast. And when I got there, I was expecting to do all sorts of chest work and bicep curls and all that bodybuilder stuff, because that's what I wanted to do at that time. I wanted to get ripped. Instead, he put me under a squat rack. And he gave me this thing called a kettlebell. And he made me do pull-ups and body weight squats and push-ups and using the rings and all sorts of weird things like flipping tires and using sledgehammers. And this was not what I thought that I would be doing. However, I'm so grateful that I did, because all he would preach to me was, you gotta build the base. You gotta stay athletic. Don't worry about your biceps. They'll grow when you're older. They're gonna grow from flipping this tire. And as a kid, I thought it was stupid, But man, like I said, I use those principles till today. So that was my first trainer, and those were the sports that really led me to a successful athletic career where, you know, I lettered as a varsity player for 4 years, and then it kind of propelled me in my field that I am in today. From there, when I was 18 and I was in high school, I got involved with bodybuilding. So I would go to football practice, and we would lift, and we would do the same basic big compound lift, squat, bench, deadlift. We would flip tires, we would swing sledgehammers, we would do farmer carries, all that, those basic great movements. But then after I had that mentality, like I said, where I was just hungry for it, I would go drive to the gym and I would do bodybuilding movements. I was obsessed with watching Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kai Green, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath. Those were all the big guys at the time. Ronnie Coleman, yeah buddy. And I signed up for my first bodybuilding competition. It was a natural bodybuilding competition, and I had no idea what I was doing. My friend's dad was my coach, and I did it. And really why I did it was because I wanted to prove that I could do something. And at that time, which is funny now because everybody's doing bodybuilding and physique competitions and all over Instagram, people thought it was the most ridiculous thing that I was gonna get into some either swimsuit or tight bikini trunks and get up there and flex all oiled up. They thought I was crazy, they thought I was stupid, but I did it anyway, and nobody can ever take that from me. So I learned a lot about bodybuilding during those times. I met people like Frank McGrath, Mark McGrath, something McGrath. He was from Animal, and I would go down to Greg Long's gym in Feasterville about once or twice a month and just train with these guys who knew so much. I submerged myself, and I tried to learn as much as I could about bodybuilding. Then, when I went to college, I went to Albright College, and I found out it wasn't really where I wanted to be. I came home from there, I reevaluated my entire life, and that is where CrossFit started becoming huge. I was tired of bodybuilding, and you know, I did a lot of other stuff, and CrossFit seemed like the most different thing at the time. So I had some friends, and we all started doing CrossFit together, and that led me into getting into CrossFit for the next probably 2 years. So I then did the CrossFit Open, which was a very cool experience for me. But really what I ended up loving from CrossFit was doing the Olympic lifts. I was a very strong athlete. At age 19, I was clean and jerking around 325 and snatching 250 pounds. And I knew I had a lot of potential in weightlifting. The only thing with CrossFit is I didn't feel like there was a lot of weightlifting programmed for strength gains. So I sat down with a coach who is Leo Totten and kind of just picked his brain about what I should do, and he kind of came to the conclusion that I had to pick between weightlifting and CrossFit. So what I picked weightlifting. So I fully submerged myself into weightlifting. I stopped doing Metcons. Maybe I did them 2 or 3 times a week, but the primary focus was Olympic weightlifting. And that's where I learned all sorts of different techniques. I got a coach who was named Rosella Rivera, who was one of USA's top female lifters. She placed for the Olympic trials, and I would drive to New Jersey 3 days a week to train with her, and she came up with a custom tailored program for me, and we would just bounce questions off each other all the time, and it really helped me as a sponge and as a coach grow during that time. You can check her out. She was a freak in like the early 2000s. Then when I was doing weightlifting, I was on the road to compete for nationals at a meet, and I tore my meniscus in one of my competitions. So that was actually my first time as an athlete. I had an injury that really affected my training. I couldn't get below parallel with squats. My knee was always aching, and I tried to push it off as long as I could, but ultimately what I realized is that I needed surgery, and I pulled the trigger and I got the surgery. Before that though, I took a break from Olympic lifting. I started doing more functional fitness as well as bodybuilding. It was kind of a weird transition period for me. I was trying to open up my gym at the time, going through all that. So my training was just all over the place. There was so much going on. I was doing like Metcons, I was doing bodybuilding, I was trying to do weightlifting, and it was insane. I loved it, and it was a cool time in my life, but then really what happened was I needed to get the business figured out. So the business was my priority, and training was kind of secondary. I was doing, like I said, bodybuilding, weightlifting, and strongman type stuff all throughout the week. But the cool part was I had a lot of experience through what I just told you about to come up with a program that had worked for me to sustain my gains as well as get a little bit stronger in some areas, but the primary focus was this place right here. So here I am today, and in terms of my programming, what I'm doing is just trying to do a strength cycle, get myself as strong as possible over the last 3 to 6 months. I still weightlift 2 days a week, but primarily I'm doing strongman training, and it is working fantastic. I signed up for my first strongman competition, as you guys know, and I'm also gonna bang out some weightlifting competitions because I would definitely love to compete at nationals. So that is my goal right now. Moving down towards mentors. So these are the people that have really helped change my... So before I get into exactly how I program and what my programming is all about, I want to talk about my mentors. So the first mentor that I had obviously was my first and second personal trainer, Mike and Rich, and they really helped mold me and give me that strong base by doing tire flips, squat, bench, deadlift, pressing, kettlebell swings, functional movements. The next person I didn't actually start watching until I was out of college was Elliot Holtz, and he was the YouTube sensation, and he was doing everything that I like to do. He was using the stones, he was flipping the tires, he was talking about life, and he was talking about how to become the strongest version of yourself. And I knew once I started watching him that this is what I wanted to do, and this was my passion and my calling. So I watched as many videos as I could of him, and I think it was like a program ad that he put up for this guy, Travis Stetzel. He was out of Nebraska, and he was offering some sort of online coaching. So I was young, I knew I had a lot of potential, and for some reason I clicked very well with everything Travis was saying, and I hired him as an online coach. So we did 3 months of online coaching. I was paying him, I think, around like $300 a month. So I know what it's like to invest in a good coach, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am today or have the knowledge. And he did all my programming, and it was a combination of weightlifting, bodybuilding, Metcons, metabolic conditioning, all in one program, and I loved it. Then that led me to Zach Evanesh, who was the founder of the first garage gym. And if you guys watch these videos and scroll back in time, I ran a business out of my garage for 2.5 years. So he had such an influence on me. And it's kind of funny because Zach is actually the founding father of all these people, but I kind of worked in like a reverse order. So those are the mentors that really helped get me to where I am today. They have the training principles and the philosophies that molded me into my own brand, my own product, my own coach, and who you see right now. I also want to throw out Brian Alsdrew, who is someone who's very recent to me, but I click a lot with his message, the type of coach he is, the type of training he does, and I'm just learning a lot about strongman through his videos and just talking with him, and we began to network. So that is video 1, guys. Video 2, I'll be putting out, I'm trying to get low. I'm actually in like a horse stance right now, getting my sweat on. It's very tense on the thighs. But the next video will be about program design, how I set up my program for my athletes in the gym and then myself, because it is different for both of us yet similar. So I'll explain all that.